heard the sound before I saw anything. A guttural roar that seemed too large to belong to any animal in our canyon. It crawled down the rocks, bouncing between the stone walls, and sank straight into my bones. In that moment, I swear the air itself turned colder, as though the canyon were exhaling death. I wasn't young when this happened. My bones already ached with every step, and my hair had gone white from years of wind and worry. Still, that night carved a wound in me deeper than any pain time had laid upon my body. It began as nothing more than a foolish outing. A group of old friends daring to relive our youth in the shadows of the canyon ruins. But by the time the night was done, I would carry something home with me, something that no medicine, no prayer, and no sleep could erase. We had always spoken of the canyon as though it were alive. Back in my boyhood, our parents told us never to go there after sunset. Spirits guard that place. My mother would whisper while stoking the fire, her voice as low as the crackle of the wood. And those spirits aren't the kind to forgive trespassers. For years, I thought it was only a story meant to frighten children. Yet on that night, with the air dry as bone and the sky spread wide with stars, I followed my friends into the very heart of it. We carried lanterns and the laughter of men too old to be reckless but too stubborn to admit it. There were 4 of us, Henry, with his booming laugh that once filled bars and still tried to fill the silence of his empty house. Samuel, who had outlived his wife and found companionship in whiskey. Thomas, the preacher's son who never stopped asking questions of God even when the answers didn't come. And me, the storyteller of the group, though I had long since run out of tales worth telling. We walked the dry riverbed, boots crunching on gravel, lantern light catching the jagged teeth of stone rising above us. The ruins appeared slowly, the way a memory returns at first uncertain, then undeniable. Carved stones half buried in sand, staircases leading nowhere, the skeletal remains of walls long surrendered to time. Henry whistled low. Hard to believe folks built anything out here. Looks like the earth chewed it up and spit it back out. Thomas ran his hand along a stone carved with markings none of us could read. They say this was holy ground once, before even the tribes claimed it. Some people called it cursed. Others called it protected. Protected from what? Samuel muttered, already uncorking his flask. It was then the first sound reached us, the thud of stone against stone. Faint but deliberate. We froze, every man stiff as a board. The canyon had its natural voices, wind moaning through cracks, pebbles tumbling from ledges, but this was different. It was rhythmic, purposeful, like someone hammering rock against rock in a pattern older than words. Just an echo, Henry said, though his voice betrayed the lie. No echo makes a rhythm, Thomas whispered. Then came the second sound, the growl. Deep, guttural, rising from the darkness ahead. It rolled through the canyon like thunder. Yet it was wet, animal, and close. My stomach clenched. Lantern light quivered as our hands trembled. Coyotes, Samuel offered, but the word was weak, half-hearted. I'd heard coyotes my entire life, their shrill yips and lonely cries across the desert. This was no coyote. This was something else. We didn't speak of turning back, not yet. Pride is a foolish companion, but it kept us walking, slow and wary, deeper into the ruins. Every step, that sense of being watched pressed harder against my skin. My lantern flame sputtered though no wind touched it. And then, from the shadows between 2 broken walls, came the sound of claws dragging over stone. We saw nothing, but the scrape echoed, long and deliberate, as if whatever was hidden wanted us to know it was there. Henry cursed under his breath. "I don't like this." "None of us do," I answered. My throat was so dry it hurt to speak. Then it came the first glimpse. Just a flicker. Just a shadow darting between rocks. Lantern light caught its outline for less than a heartbeat. But it was enough. For legs bent wrong. A body low and misshapen. A head that seemed both canine and something else. Samuel stumbled back, nearly dropping his flask. "Did you see that? Tell me you saw that." We all saw it. None of us wanted to admit what we had seen. The growl came again, closer this time, vibrating the stones beneath our boots. And then the howl. A scream not of this world. Part wolf, part man, part nightmare. Thomas clutched the cross around his neck. "God help us." We ran. Old men don't run well. But fear makes the body younger than it is. We stumbled, gasped for air, cursed at the rocks underfoot. But none of us stopped until the canyon spat us back out beneath the endless stars. Not once did we look over our shoulders. Not once did we dare. For weeks after, the canyon haunted my sleep. The growl echoed in my dreams. The howl tore through the silence of my nights. I told myself it was imagination, a trick of shadows, the foolishness of old men chasing ghosts where there were none. But then I saw it. It was late evening. I was walking home from the store, the sky bruised purple with dusk. My house stood at the edge of the desert, where the dirt road met the first scattering of rocks. That was when I heard it again, that scrape of claws on stone. I froze. And there, not 20 yards away, stood the thing. It was shaped like a dog, but wrong in every way. His body sagged as though its bones didn't fit inside its skin. Its legs bent too far, joints protruding sharp and unnatural. It had no tail. Its head hung low, eyes glinting with a dull, sickly light. And when it walked, oh God, when it walked, it moved sideways, like each step was borrowed from a broken memory of motion. My heart slammed against my ribs. The air turned to ice. It stopped and stared at me, and in that silence, I knew this was no animal. This was something that wore the shape of one. The stories came rushing back, stories of the old people, of creatures that shifted skin, of spirits that prowled the borders of the living and the dead. A skinwalker. That word, whispered like a curse, filled my head. I dropped the bag of groceries without meaning to. The creature flinched at the sound of shattering glass, then vanished into the scrub as though it had never been there. I stood alone, shaking, unable to breathe, staring at the place it had been. When I finally staggered inside, I locked every door, every window. I lit candles and prayed words I hadn't spoken in years. And still I felt it, watching me from the dark. My children thought I'd gone mad. My son laughed when I told him, "Dad, it was probably just a stray, half-starved. You scared yourself." But my daughter saw the terror in my eyes, the way my hands wouldn't stop shaking. She went to Father Miguel, the old priest who had baptized her. Within the week, my family gathered in my house. They brought sage, holy water, and words older than any book. I sat in the center of the room as they prayed, voices rising, smoke curling toward the ceiling. And when the chanting reached its peak, I felt it. The air bent, heavy, suffocating. The shadows in the corners writhed. The candles flickered though no wind stirred. Something in me screamed to run, but I couldn't move. The creature was there, unseen but certain, pressing against the walls, scratching at the edges of my soul. The priest's voice grew louder, commanding, relentless. My daughter clutched my hand, whispering that it would be all right, though her tears betrayed her. And then, like a cord snapping, I felt it leave. A weight lifted from my chest. The room brightened as though the shadows had retreated. But I knew better. It hadn't gone. It had only been pushed back. And it was waiting. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the canyon, about the foolishness of 4 old men chasing echoes in the dark. I thought about the growl that still shivered in my bones, about the deformed dog with no tail and a gait that belonged to something not of this earth. And I knew, with a certainty colder than death, that one day it would come again. One day, it would stand at my door. And when it did, I would have no prayers left strong enough to drive it away. Sleep became a battlefield after that night. Each time I closed my eyes, I saw the canyon, the ruined stones, the lantern trembling in my hand, and then the creature bent, tailless, wrong emerging from shadow. When morning came, I woke drenched in sweat, heart hammering like a drum, the taste of iron in my mouth. I stopped sleeping through the night altogether. Instead, I paced the house with every creak of the floorboards. The desert beyond my window seemed endless, a black ocean stretching toward some nameless shore. And in that silence, I swore I could hear it breathing. The others pretended nothing had happened. Henry joked about our little adventure, though his laugh was weaker now, hollower. Samuel buried himself in his bottles, never admitting the tremor in his hands had grown worse since the canyon. Thomas prayed more fervently, but when I looked at his eyes, I saw a doubt gnawing at him like a worm inside an apple. None of them wanted to speak of what we saw, but I couldn't keep it inside. My daughter, Elena, visited me every Sunday after church. She always brought bread she baked herself, warm and soft, carrying the smell of rosemary. That Sunday, as she set the bread on the counter, she looked at me long and hard. "Papa," she said gently, "you look thinner. Are you eating?" I tried to lie, but my voice cracked. "I eat, child. Just not much sleep." She frowned, brushing her dark hair from her face. "Because of that thing you said you saw." I looked away, ashamed of the truth. "You don't believe me either." Her hand touched mine, warm and steady. "I believe you believe it, Papa. And that is enough for me." Her words nearly broke me. I had spent a lifetime as a father trying to protect her from fear. And now here she was, protecting me instead. That night, after she left, I sat in my chair until dawn, holding onto the memory of her hand on mine like it was the last anchor keeping me from drifting into madness. 2 weeks later, Henry died. They said it was his heart. He had been in his garden when he collapsed. The neighbors found him lying between the rows of tomatoes, eyes wide open as though something had startled him in those final moments. I didn't need anyone to tell me what he had seen. At the funeral, I stood beside Samuel and Thomas, the 3 of us dressed in black, looking older and smaller than I had ever known us to be. Samuel's flask shook in his grip, though he tried to hide it in his pocket. Thomas muttered prayers under his breath, his lips never still. When the coffin was lowered into the ground, I felt the air shift, heavy and thick, the way it had during the cleansing in my home. My breath caught, for the briefest second, across the cemetery. I thought I saw it again, the silhouette of the creature, watching from the shade of the trees. I blinked, and it was gone. But I knew it had been there, watching, claiming. Samuel was next. It happened only a month after Henry's passing. He was found in his chair, the bottle still in his hand, his face twisted in terror. They said he drank himself to death. I knew better. It was stalking us, one by one. I couldn't tell if Thomas believed that too. But when I saw him after Samuel's funeral, he looked like a man unraveling. His Bible was always in his hand now, pages worn thin from his grip. He asked me, over and over, why us? Why now? What sin did we commit? I had no answer. But deep down, I wondered if it had been our pride, our arrogance in walking into the canyon after dark, ignoring the warnings of our mothers and fathers. We had stirred something awake, something that did not forgive. One night, I woke to the sound of scratching. It came from the walls. Long, deliberate strokes, like claws dragging across wood. My heart leapt to my throat. I sat up in bed, listening, every muscle taut. Then came the growl, low and guttural, seeping through the cracks of the house. I stumbled out of bed, grabbed the shotgun I kept behind the door, and raised it with trembling arms. My breath fogged in the air as though the room had turned into winter. I pulled back the curtain. There it was, standing in the yard, bathed in moonlight. The creature stared at me. Its head was cocked unnaturally to the side, its mouth slightly open, teeth too sharp, too human, gleaming wet. Its legs twitched as it shifted its weight. That sideways, broken gait carrying it closer. I raised the gun, but my finger refused to move. It wasn't fear that stopped, might was certainty. Certainty that bullets would mean nothing to something like this. Came closer, step by step, until it reached the edge of the porch. Then it stopped. Our eyes met through the glass. And in those eyes, I saw not the hunger of a beast, but the intelligence of something older, crueler. Something that knew me, that had marked me. I screamed a prayer, voice cracking, desperate. And in an instant, it was gone. No sound of retreat, no flash of shadow. Just gone. I fell to my knees, the shotgun slipping from my hands, tears streaming down my face. The next morning, I found claw marks across my front door. Deep, jagged, carved into the wood. Proof that it hadn't been a dream. Proof that it wanted me to know it could enter whenever it pleased. I called Thomas. He answered on the second ring, his voice hoarse and trembling. Has it come to you too? I asked. There was silence on the line. Then a whisper, last night. It stood at the foot of my bed. My blood ran cold. What did it do? Nothing, he said. It only watched. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It was like my soul was nailed to the mattress. When I finally blinked, it was gone. Neither of us spoke after that. There was nothing to say. We both knew the truth. It wasn't finished with us. The days stretched on. empty and brittle. I stopped going to town, stopped answering the phone, stopped leaving the house after dark. Elena came often, bringing food and light, but I saw the worry in her eyes deepen with every visit. One evening, she begged me to leave. "Come stay with me, Papa. Please. You don't have to be alone here." I shook my head. "It will follow me, child. Better it comes for me here than finds its way to your home." She cried, but I held firm. I could not risk it touching her life. That night, after she left, I sat on the porch with the shotgun across my lap, staring out at the desert. The wind whispered through the brush, carrying voices I could almost understand. And in the distance, from the direction of the canyon, I heard it again. The howl. Not animal. Not human. Something between. Something calling my name. I dreamed of the canyon again. In the dream, I walked alone through the ruins, lantern in hand. The stones glowed faintly, as though blood pulsed beneath them. And from every shadow, every crack in the wall, I stared at me. At the center of the canyon, the creature waited. Its body shifted as I approached, stretching taller, limbs rearranging until it was almost human. Its face rippled like water, features twisting into something I recognized: Henry's face. Then Samuel's. Then Thomas's. Then mine. I woke screaming, drenched in sweat. And for the first time, I knew what it wanted. Not just to kill us, to become us. A week later, Thomas was gone. They found his Bible open on the kitchen table, the chair pushed back as though he had risen suddenly. But no trace of him remained. No body, no struggle, just gone. The sheriff called it a disappearance. The neighbors called it a tragedy, called it what it was. The creature had taken him. And now, I was the last. The house grew smaller with every passing night. It wasn't the walls closing, I knew it wasn't. But fear changes how you see a place. The hallways where my children once ran became corridors of shadows. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like claws. Every gust of wind against the windows whispered my name. I stopped sleeping entirely. My body begged for rest. But the moment my eyes closed, I would hear its scrape of nails on stone, the guttural breathing just beyond the door. It was circling me, waiting. And I, an old man too weak to fight and too stubborn to die quietly, was trapped in my own house like prey. On the fourth night after Thomas vanished, I heard it again. The growl. Low, wet, vibrating the glass in the windows. I gripped the shotgun and crept toward the sound, my heart pounding so violently I thought it would burst. Sweat trickled down my face even though the room was cold enough to see my breath. And then knocking. 3 sharp knocks on the front door. I froze. It wasn't claws this time. It was a hand. The knocks came again. Harder. My breath caught. Slowly, I inched closer, pressing my ear against the wood. Papa. The voice. My daughter's voice. I stumbled back, tears springing to my eyes. Elena. Her voice trembled, soft, desperate. Papa, please, let me in. It's cold out here. My hand went to the lock, ready to turn it. But then I stopped, because I remembered Elena had gone to the city that morning. She wouldn't be back until the weekend. The voice outside shifted, cracking like dry wood. Papa, don't you love me? I staggered back, shotgun shaking in my grip. The voice deepened, warped, twisting into something guttural, animal, cruel. And then it laughed. A hollow, rasping laugh that curdled my blood. The knocking stopped. Silence. I stayed there, standing in the dark, staring at the door until sunrise. The next day, I went into town. Not for groceries. Not for company. For answers. The old woman who lived on the edge of town Maria was the only one I dared to ask. People called her a witch, but I knew better. She carried the old stories, the warnings passed down from ancestors who understood things modern men mocked. Her house smelled of sage and smoke, her walls lined with jars of herbs and bones. When she saw me, she frowned, as if she already knew what I carried on my shoulders. "You saw it," she said before I even opened my mouth. My throat tightened. "It follows me." She nodded. Slow. Heavy. "Skinwalker. You went where you should not have gone. The canyon belongs to them. You stirred it awake." I gripped the chair to steady myself. "Can it be stopped?" Her eyes were dark. Endless. Not stopped. Only delayed. Feeds on fear. On life. It will wear your face when you are gone. It already wears your friends. Her words cut through me like glass. "Then what do I do?" She handed me a pouch of herbs, black as ash. "Burn this when it comes. Pray if you still believe in prayer. But know this: if it has chosen you, it will not rest until it wears your skin." I left her house with shaking hands and a heart that felt already half-eaten. That night, I burned the herbs. The smoke filled the room, thick and bitter, stinging my eyes. I whispered prayers I hadn't spoken since boyhood, my voice cracking, desperate. And it came. Oh God, came. The walls groaned as though the house itself were bending under its weight. Shadows writhed across the ceiling, long and twisted. My lanterns flickered, their flames shrinking to tiny, trembling dots. And then I heard it scratching. Not at the doors. Not at the windows. Inside. From the walls themselves. I backed into the center of the room, clutching the shotgun, heart pounding so loud it drowned everything else. The smoke curled upward, but it didn't drive the thing away. If anything, it seemed to delight in it. A laugh bubbled up from the walls, low and mocking, echoing through the beams of my house. Then, from the corner, it stepped out. The dog thing. Twisted, tailless, bones jutting wrong beneath its skin. But as it moved closer, the shape shifted, rippling like water. For an instant, it wore Henry's face, mouth slack and empty. Then Samuel's, lips pulled back in a silent scream. Then Thomas's, eyes hollow with terror. Finally, it wore mine. My own face stared back at me, but broken, twisted, smiling in a way I never could. I screamed and fired. The blast tore through the smoke, deafening in the small room. But when the haze cleared, there was nothing. Only laughter. Not from the walls. From inside my head. I don't know how long I lay on the floor after that. Maybe minutes. Maybe hours. When I opened my eyes, dawn had come, painting the desert gold. The house was quiet. Too quiet. And for the first time, I wondered if I was already dead. The days blurred together after that. I hardly ate. I hardly spoke. Elena came once more, begging me to leave the house, to come live with her. But I couldn't. If I left, it would follow me, and I would rather rot alone in this house than bring that curse upon her children. That night, I dreamed of the canyon again. This time, I wasn't alone. The creature walked beside me, wearing my daughter's face. Her eyes were wet with tears, her hand clutching mine. "Papa," she whispered, "come with me." I tried to pull away, but her grip was iron. Then her face melted, bones shifting, until the thing stood there in its true form. It leaned close, lips curling into a grin. "When you die," it whispered, "I will wear you. Your children will never know the difference." I woke screaming, throat raw, nails clawing the sheets. And I knew then it wouldn't wait much longer. On the 7th night, came for me in full. The growls shook the walls. The glass in the windows shattered one by one, spilling the cold night air inside. The door buckled under blows that rattled the hinges. I stumbled to the center of the room, clutching the shotgun, herbs burning in every corner, smoke rising like a desperate shield. The laughter filled the air. Not outside. Inside. Above me. Beneath me. Surrounding me. And then, with a final crash, the door splintered inward. I stepped through. The skinwalker. No longer hiding behind shadows. No longer half-glimpsed in the night. Stood before me, tall, hunched, its body twitching like a puppet on broken strings. Its head cocked to the side, eyes glowing faintly, mouth stretched into that terrible grin. And with every step it took, the faces rippled across its flesh. Henry, Samuel, Thomas, my daughter, my son, until finally settled on mine. My own face stared back at me, smiling with a hunger I couldn't name. "Time," it whispered in my voice. The room spun. My knees buckled. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would break through my chest. But I raised the gun anyway. If this was the end, I would not go silent. The creature didn't lunge. It didn't roar. It only stood there, grinning with my own face, as if savoring the moment. That stillness was worse than any attack. I tightened my grip on the shotgun until my knuckles cracked. "Stay back," I rasped, though my voice trembled. Betraying me, tilted its head, mocking me. Then it spoke again. And hearing my own voice come from its throat was the most unnatural thing I had ever known. "You are tired," it said softly. "You are weak. Give me your skin. Let me wear you." The words crawled into me like maggots. I fired. The blast roared through the house, the recoil slamming into my shoulder. For a heartbeat, the smoke cleared and I thought maybe, just maybe, I had hit it. But it was gone. No body. No blood. Only the sound of claws scraping on the ceiling above me. I looked up just as it dropped. The weight of it slammed me to the floor, my chest burning, ribs threatening to snap. Its face hovered inches from mine, still wearing my features, twisted into something vile. Its breath reeked of rot and iron. I shoved the shotgun upward, jamming the barrel against its chest, and fired again. The blast knocked it back. I scrambled to my feet, lungs screaming, vision blurred. The creature writhed in the corner, its body jerking in impossible directions, bones snapping and resetting. For a moment, his face flickered again, Henry's terrified eyes, Samuel's twisted mouth, Thomas's silent scream, then back to mine. I staggered toward the door, knowing the walls of this house would not hold it any longer. The desert was cold and vast, the moon hanging low like a pail. Watching I ran or tried to. My legs were heavy, stiff, but fear carried me. Every step crunched gravel. Every breath cut my throat raw. Behind me, I heard it. The broken gate, the sideways shuffle, claws dragging over stone. It was following, relentless, patient. I don't remember how long I ran. My lungs burned. My heart hammered against my ribs like a prisoner trying to escape. When at last I stopped, the world had shifted. I was at the mouth of the canyon, the place where it had all begun. The ruins loomed in the moonlight, carved stones casting jagged shadows. The air here felt heavier, charged, like standing beneath a storm that never broke. I fell to my knees, gasping, staring into the black throat of the canyon. And then I heard its rhythm, stone on stone. That same deliberate, ancient pounding we had heard the first night. I clutched the shotgun tighter, though it felt useless in my hands. My body trembled, but something deeper inside me stirred. A strange certainty. If this ended anywhere, it would end here, in the canyon, where it had awakened. The ruins swallowed me whole. The air grew colder with every step, the silence broken only by the scrape of claws echoing somewhere behind me. The walls pressed close, ancient carvings glinting in the pale light. The rhythm grew louder, stone on stone, not random, not noise. A language I could not understand, older than any prayer I had ever spoken. I reached the center of the canyon, the same place we had stood that night when it first revealed itself. My lantern flickered, shadows twitching on the carved walls. And there it was, not hiding this time, not flickering in and out. The skinwalker stood tall, its form stretched and broken, its limbs twitching as though held by invisible strings. Its face shifted slowly, cycling through the men I had loved and lost. Henry, Samuel, Thomas, before finally settling on my daughters. Papa, it whispered in her voice. I fell to my knees. My chest clenched as though a hand had wrapped around my heart. Tears blurred my vision. It stepped closer, its gait jerking, sideways, unnatural. Its eyes glowed faintly, and I realized with horror that they were not the eyes of any animal. They were human, eyes I had seen before. Henry's, Samuel's, Thomas's, staring out from within it. The shotgun slipped from my grip. You cannot fight me, it whispered, now in my own voice again. I am already inside you. And for the first time, I believed it, because the laughter wasn't coming from the creature anymore. It was coming from me. I screamed and pressed my hands to my ears, desperate to block it out. But the sound poured from my own mouth, hollow and broken, until I couldn't tell where the creature ended and I began. The ruins seemed to pulse with it. The walls shivered. The carvings glowed faintly, red and alive, like veins carrying blood. The canyon was awake, and I was its offering. But something inside Mesmal, fragile, stubborn, refused to surrender. Not yet. I dragged myself to the shotgun, fumbling with trembling hands. My vision swam. My chest burned. But I raised it anyway, pointing it straight at the thing wearing my daughter's face. "If you want me," I gasped, "then come take me." The creature smiled. A wide, jagged grin that split too far. Teeth glistening. I stepped forward. I pulled the trigger. The blast echoed off the canyon walls, louder than thunder. For an instant, the creature shuddered, its body convulsing violently. The faces rippled faster. Henry, Samuel, Thomas, Elena, Muntel, they blurred together in a grotesque mask. Then it screamed. Not a howl. Not a laugh. A scream so piercing, so filled with rage and agony, that it felt like the stones themselves would crack. The ground trembled. Dust rained from the cliffs. The ruins glowed brighter, as though feeding on its torment. I fell back, ears ringing, heart hammering. The creature staggered, its form collapsing in on itself, limbs twisting, bones snapping. But even as it writhed, even as it fell, I knew it wasn't dying. It was changing. And as I watched, horror rooting me to the ground, I realized the truth. The canyon didn't just house it. The canyon made it. And it was remaking me. The canyon trembled as if the earth itself had woken from a nightmare. The skinwalker writhed in front of me, its body bending into shapes that defied reason. Its bones snapped like dry branches, reforming, twisting. The faces rippled across its skin faster and faster. Henry's lifeless eyes, Samuel's slack mouth, Thomas's hollow stare, my daughter's terrified face, and finally my own, smiling in ways I never could. The scream that tore from its throat was not just sound. It was a force that shook the air, rattled my teeth, made blood drip warm from my ears. I staggered, barely able to hold the shotgun anymore. My body was too old, too broken for this fight. And yet, I stood, because I knew one thing: the creature didn't want just my flesh. It wanted my soul. And that, I swore, it would not take. The ruins glowed faintly in the darkness, each carved stone pulsing like a heart. The ground beneath my boots throbbed, as though alive. I understood then. The canyon wasn't cursed. It wasn't haunted. It was hungry. And the skinwalker was its mouth. The creature lunged. I barely rolled aside, the claws raking across stone where my head had been. Sparks flew. I fired the shotgun blindly, the blast lighting up the canyon for a heartbeat. The creature shrieked but did not fall. It was too fast, too relentless. I scrambled backward, chest heaving, heart screaming with pain. My old legs faltered, knees hitting the dirt. The creature crawled toward me, body jerking sideways, its gait broken and awful, eyes glowing with stolen life. "Henry," it whispered in his voice. "Samuel." Then in Thomas's voice, "Brother." Finally, in Elena's trembling voice, "Papa, please." I pressed my hands to my ears, but the voices weren't outside anymore. They were inside me. It was pulling them from my memory, from the deepest places of my heart, using them against me. Tears blurred my vision. "You're not her," I spat, voice cracking. "You'll never be her." I smiled with her face anyway. I stumbled to my feet and ran deeper into the canyon. The ruins seemed endless, the carvings burning brighter the further I went. The air grew heavy, pressing down on my chest. crushing. Behind me, the skinwalker followed, its laughter echoing, bouncing off the walls. Sometimes it sounded like Henry, sometimes Samuel, sometimes my own laughter, mocking me. The canyon was closing in. I felt it swallowing me whole. At the center, I found it. An altar, carved from stone, covered in symbols older than language. It pulsed with a sickly red glow, veins of light spreading out from it into the canyon floor like roots. The creature circled me now, pacing, slow and deliberate, its body bent and cracked with every step, the sound of breaking bones filling the silence. It wanted me to understand. This altar was its heart. This was where it had been born. This was where it would claim me. I fell to my knees before it, not in worship, but in exhaustion. My chest burned, each breath shallow and sharp. My shotgun was empty. My body had nothing left to give. But my spirit still held. I pulled from my pocket the last of the herbs Maria had given me. I didn't know if they would help, didn't know if they were strong enough. But I lit them anyway, the smoke curling up toward the black sky. The creature hissed, recoiling slightly, though its grin never faltered. I pressed my bloody palm to the altar, smearing it with the ash and smoke. The canyon shook. The glow flared brighter, blinding, and in that moment, I felt them Henry, Samuel, Thomas. Not their faces, not their voices twisted by the creature, but their true presence. Weak, fading, but there. They had been swallowed, but not completely. I screamed their names into the canyon. The skinwalker shrieked, a sound of rage and agony that split the night. It lunged for me, claws outstretched, but the altar's glow flared brighter, wrapping me in light. The air burned, my flesh seared, but I held on. If this was the end of me, then let it be with them. The creature collided with me, and for a heartbeat, the world split apart. I was no longer in the canyon. I was in every memory of my life at once. My childhood, my wife's smile, my daughter's laughter, my son's mocking grin, my friends at the bar, the nights by the fire, the foolish walk into the canyon ruins. And through all of it, the creature slithered, wearing my face, my memories, my sins. It whispered, "You are mine." But then another voice rose. Not mine. Not the skinwalkers. Henry. Samuel. Thomas. We are still here. Their strength filled me, not with power, but with defiance, with love, with the bond of men who had shared a lifetime. And in that moment, I realized the creature couldn't survive without fear. So I gave it none. I looked into its eyes and whispered, "Steady, unbroken, you will never wear me." The altar exploded in light. The canyon roared, walls shaking, rocks splintering. The creature screamed, body convulsing, faces flickering one last time before its form began to tear apart, dissolving into smoke and ash. Clawed at me, but its hands passed through like mist. And then it was gone. The glow faded. The ruins fell silent. I collapsed against the altar, body broken, heart barely beating. The stars above swirled in and out of focus. I knew I would not walk out of the canyon, but I also knew the skinwalker would not leave it again. When dawn came, the desert was still. The ruins stood as they always had. Silent. Forgotten. They found me days later. My daughter, Elena, and the sheriff. My body lying at the altar. Shotgun empty beside me. The smell of burned sage in the air. They said my heart had finally given out. That I had died alone. But Elena swore she saw something else. She said my face was peaceful. And she said, as she closed my eyes, she thought she heard laughter not cruel, not mocking, but the warm laughter of old friends reunited at last. They buried me beside Henry, Samuel, and Thomas. The canyon still stands, its ruins silent, its stones weathered by time. People say it is cursed, haunted, a place where the air grows heavy and shadows move on their own. But Elena knows the truth. She tells her children never to go there, not after dark, because somewhere deep in the canyon, beneath the stones and the silence, the skinwalker sleeps. And though I gave everything to bind it there, someday, when the stars are right and the desert is quiet enough, it may wake again. And when it does, God help whoever hears that first growl.